Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for joining us. I'm honored to be on stage with individuals who have made changes in people's lives. And today's topic is social enterprise through artisans. And I'd like to start with Murad. Murad, if you can tell us, please, your background is in finance, but you initiated weaving alliances. Can you tell us more about it?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this panel. First of all, I have been working in the financial industry for 20 years. So I was a trader. So in fact, I was making, in fact, an impact in the financial market. And I believe that by using certain skills that I had, I could make a positive impact towards different communities. And to respond to your question is, I've always been interested in the stories, challenges, business model of social entrepreneurs, and the impact that they're making towards communities across the world. And the reason why we launched only recently, in fact, Weaving Alliances, it's just a collaboration, in fact, between different stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, we're referring to public sector, private, non-profit organizations. And we're here, in fact, to, can I say this, to collaborate and develop any social impact projects that would use creativity and innovation related to experience as well. And we're here, in fact, to, by such collaboration, such partnership, we aim to make a positive impact towards the beneficiaries across the world, in fact.
Can you tell us about your first project?
So yes, so the Weaving Alliances, in fact, I'll come back a little bit on why this project and why we're here today. So I've been involved in several projects between Southeast Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. All the projects usually aim to help, for example, the youth getting an education. We know how education is very important. Second category of project we involved as well is helping specific communities generating an income. And I've come across the amazing work of social entrepreneur Ashenio in Nigeria, who has been transforming environmental issue into a solution which helps a large community of artisans. And I found this amazing, and I said, okay, how we can develop a project under the umbrella of Weaving Alliances. So we decided to bridge the two communities of artisans between Nigeria and the UAE, so Emirati artisan, Nigerian artisan, using their know-how, skills, to come with something very concrete. And we call it the masterpiece, that will be ready very soon. And yes, it's amazing. So, and hopefully, this is making an impact. I'm sure you'll have, we'll discuss this later, but yeah.
Excellent. I'd like to move on to Ashenio. There's this short video. Quite exciting. Can you tell us more about what your organization does?
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah.
Great. All right. Good afternoon. And it's a delight to be here. So I do appreciate the opportunity to be on this platform to share what we do. So MITIMETH actually evolved as a result of an observation that I had made. I was in Lagos and I observed this plant on the lagoon, and I believed it was a problem. That's what I perceived, because it had blanketed the lagoon and a number of fishing boats had been hemmed in by this plant, this aquatic weed. But But just because I made that observation and I perceived it to be a problem did not necessarily mean that it was a problem. So armed with that observation, I decided to do a little bit of research on this plant, and the plant is called water hyacinth. And I was astounded by what I found out. I found out that it was not just a Nigerian problem, but that it was a global problem affecting over 58 countries in both subtropical and tropical zones across the world. And so, armed with that data, I decided to look at ways in which we could turn this problem into a solution, which would be a win-win for the environment and the communities that were affected, negatively affected by the infestation of the weed. And some of the negative impacts of the weed is, the fishing communities were obstructed by this plant, and we needed to find ways that would sort of incentivize them to want to clear the waterways and also provide livelihoods for them. So I took this data, looked at what the practical applications would be, and wanted something that could easily be adopted. So I focused on the creative arts, looking at how we could actually transform this weed into handcrafted items, because it won't require a huge deal of technical expertise, and neither would it require a huge capital outlay. And that essentially was the genesis of Miti Meth evolving into this artisan enterprise, whereby we created an artisan economy literally from ground zero, because these communities were not into weaving, and what we're doing is telling them that you have this abundant resource which is available for free, and what you can do is actually take this resource and create economic value from it. To date, we have trained over 700 people from various communities across Nigeria, and also in Ghana. Interestingly, I do want to point out that in my research, I found out that 26 out of our 36 states of the Federation actually had this problem. So it was a widespread problem in Nigeria. So we've trained over 700, working jointly with the public sector as well as the private sector. What do we do with it? We make home decor, lifestyle products, as well as art, functional and decorative art.
Beautiful. And can you tell us more about how the material is treated so you can actually do this kind of art?
Yes, absolutely. So the plant is actually, it's a freshwater plant. So it's green, very luscious, very vibrant. What we do is we harvest the weed from the waterways, and we detach the stem from the root system. So the root system very thick, and in fact that's what causes a lot of problems with fishing boats, because it damages the outboard engines. So we detach the stems and then we lay it out to dry in the sun. The plant is about 95% water, so what we want is a 5% dry weight. So you'll see the lady sitting with those bundles there. Those are the bundles of water hyacinth that have actually dried. So we take these bundles and we then strip them, or rather we cut them into thinner strips, and then the ladies in the middle are actually weaving. So they're weaving the water hyacinth into ropes. Now these ropes are then the starting point for making different kinds of decorative items and functional items, including this bracelet on my wrist, and we'll talk about that later. So we move to the third panel there. This is actually a piece of the masterpiece that's in the works. And what you have here are the woven water hyacinth stems. So what the women have woven in the middle have now been combined into different, should I say, strips, woven with thread, fish twine, and combined together. So this is all part of the masterpiece, which Hadra, unfortunately she's not here, had designed. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, later. So that's what you have in this picture here.
Excellent. So Hajar worked with the artisans in the House of Artisans to create this piece.
Exactly. So we have two groups, so a group of artisans in Nigeria, and then we have a group of artisans here with the House of Artisans. And what we did was actually create different pieces, a piece in Nigeria and a piece here in Abu Dhabi. And those two pieces were then merged together, which is going to form this overall masterpiece. So you essentially have the weaving culture in one country combined with the weaving culture in another to create this transcontinental or transcultural piece, which hopefully we'll be showing very soon.
Exciting. And how did this conversation start? When did this idea come together between you and Murad?
Can I speak to that or do you want to? Okay. It started with a conversation. So I was here in Abu Dhabi in March, and I walked through the Galleria Mall, and I saw this fascinating piece on the wall, and it really arrested my attention, so I actually took pictures of it. And then subsequently, a few weeks later, Murad and I were talking, and I said, oh, I saw this marvelous piece on the wall at the Galleria, and I sent him pictures. And he said, this is Sadu. And I'm like, I love the textures, the material, and that's essentially the genesis of the Weaving Alliance. Of course, you can now jump in.
And then how did Hajar get into this conversation, Murad?
Yes, I mean, for any project, usually we have to involve different stakeholders, right? And we needed someone who knows how to deal with Sadu. And Hajar El-Taniaji is a designer who knows how to handle Sadu, the techniques as well. I said, it's important that you are part of this project to be successful. And then we started on, and then who would be the artisan in UAE? So we spoke to the House of Artisans, artisans with Ashenio, and this is how we started the work of the masterpiece. Yeah.
Exciting.
And if I could add, there were four of us, so it's Murad, Hajar, Maysoon, and myself as well. So we're all part of this discussion, dialogue. Essentially, it was a journey because it started in May. And it was a journey of discovery, a journey of exploration, a journey of understanding, a journey of research, a journey of design as well. It was a co-created effort. Of course, Hajar, very, very brilliant designer, came up with these inspirations based on textures, materials, colors that we had in both countries, and then fused this together to come up with the masterpieces.
Beautiful, thank you. I'd like to move to discuss with Nadine, 81 Design. Thank you for joining us, Nadine.
Thank you so much.
Can you start with introducing 81 Design?
Yes, 81 Designs is a concept that was created, a social enterprise that was created in 2015. And it was all about bridging cultures and preserving tatreez as a medium, and how we can promote tatreez by working with regional artists and giving them a wider platform to create unconventional ways of showcasing the work of the refugee artisans that we work with. So it was about preserving the craft and as well as giving it a different identity in a modern time.
Beautiful.
Yes. The slides that you have in front of you are from our collaboration with Hassan Hajjaj El Seed and Buksha. I chose these slides because of the importance of how and where we began and what we're doing today. El Seed, we were fortunate enough in 2016, El Seed did launch our social enterprise, and we worked with him on the conventional method of using tatreez, however, in an unconventional way of promoting it through artwork. And we took 7 of his designs at the time and recreated them into these masterpieces. And the work was just incredible. And it was a leap of faith for him too, because he had not worked with a social enterprise before. And it was just, we were just very fortunate to have him as our initial artist. And that then developed to a deeper project with him where he came to the camp in Lebanon, and he painted, used the women and children, the women who we employ, and the children to paint murals outside of this Anrawa school, and then translate those murals into also masterpieces. And then moving on, we worked with Hassan Hajjaj, who's Moroccan, based in London. And he came to the camp as well and photographed the women in his artistic way. And we also created pieces from one of his first art exhibitions called Graphics from the Souk. And the third piece, what's important about it, is that we then transformed the use of moving from the traditional way of using tatrees on canvas to functional objects. And this is where we began experimenting more of how we can use tatrees and work with artists to create different objects, tangible objects. And since then, that was taken in 2018, we moved away from just the standard tatrees on canvas. Yes.
And how do you think the conversation happens between these artisans and the artist? What's the conversation? What's the journey? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the first time we worked with the artist, he couldn't go to the camp because it was just one of those things where it was a 5-month period. It was shortly lived. And there was not enough time for him to be active in the camp. Over the last few years, most of our artists have worked directly with the artisans. But unfortunately, the last 2 years, it's been very difficult because of the economic situation in Lebanon for the artists to come in. Hence, Bushra is here today. So we've had to go into alternative ways to co-create, and hence Zoom has been our friend. The best way forward to be able to speak about what it is that we were trying to achieve as an end product. But I'm not going to speak on behalf of Bushra, but it's definitely been a journey in terms of the women that we work with are extremely talented. And our head artisan, Mahmoud, is our trainer. So she trains all the ladies and oversees their work. And they're up. The wonderful thing about them is that they're ready for the challenge and they're excited about working and using the medium in different ways. So this has been a blessing for the artist and for them as a collaborator. Yeah.
You mentioned your collaboration with Bushra, which is showcased here in Abu Dhabi Art. But I'd like to take this conversation with Bushra, and as an artist, whether it's this collaboration with 81 Designs or other collaborations that you've done with leading institutions, tell us some more about how you started and how this conversation with collaboration and how important is collaboration to you specifically.
First of all, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. It's an honor for me to be here. So yeah, I'm an artist and designer based in Morocco. I was always very passionate about craft. I didn't really know why or how I was going to approach it. And upon returning from the UK, I stumbled on a pottery studio and I met an artisan. And I immediately connected with the material. I think it just spoke to me because it's a natural material and it's very humble. So I started doing this work, creating small collections for myself, and then I started meeting a lot of different artisans. I started traveling around the country and really getting interested into craft, what does it mean to be an artisan? How do you make the work? And I was not a ceramicist as well in the beginning, so I learned the craft through local artisans. And through doing that and making my art and going around the country, I also came to realize the problems that were occurring within the industry. And one of the greatest problems is craft preservation. And you find amazing master craftsmen who have amazing techniques, and unfortunately the younger generation is more interested in moving to the city than actually staying in the rural areas. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And so there's an education there about the value of craft, what craft means. So my work is just really trying to bring out the best of what we have as a traditional craft and innovate a little bit, but also have dialogues with these people and give them ideas to maybe enhance the craft or make them realize that it's really something that is very valuable. And then I had the privilege to work with 81 Designs. I immediately connected because there's a similar aim to preserve craft. So when I was approached by Nadine, I was sure I wanted to work on the project. And it was amazing because so the pots were created in Morocco, and it was such a technical challenge. And then they were sent to Lebanon and embroidered by the ladies from 81 Designs. Yeah.
So tell us more about this process, as you were saying about the hardships because of the current situation in Lebanon. How did this work? Yes.
Well, the way that we function is that Busha's very organized, and she created some drawings to sort of show the patterns that would be needed in the pottery that she was creating. And there were some difficulties because, as you know, the airport and the shipping of goods has been challenging of late, and just bringing the items from the airport to the workshop is a challenge on its own. And it was always a challenge, and it was even more of a challenge because of the lack of gas, the inflated prices, the recession, and the economic crisis that Lebanon is facing in terms of liquidity of cash. Working with Busha, and this is again, I'm going back to technology. Technology is really what helped us see through the project. It's the WhatsApp group, the Zoom calls. My mother, who's in the audience, was very essential to this process. She's the person who runs things on the ground. And we had some frustrations, but we overcame the frustrations into creating 11 beautiful pieces that are on display. And I'm grateful to say that it was an extremely successful project.
I'll add to that. I think also when we first thought about tatris and pottery, it doesn't come naturally. You don't really know what you're going to do. How do you combine two very different techniques? And for me, it was kind of like producing a shared canvas where I could work, but also have these ladies work with me on this canvas, which was a pot. And so when we sent the pots to Lebanon, we didn't really know exactly what we were going to do. We were having this conversation with Nadine about, tatris and unconventional ways of exploring tatris, or new ways of exploring it. But I was also very interested in their creativity and what they would come up with it, because I didn't want it to be just me saying, this is what you should do. So, and the conversation with Nasreen as well, it was very challenging, because I think even they were a bit scared in the beginning, because they're used to fabric and tatris on fabric, and it's these pots arriving, so what do we do? And we also decided to work with a natural fiber, which is not conventional as well for tatris. It's a thicker material, so it's different. But in the end, there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of exchanges, and I learned so much from them, and they learned from me, and we created these beautiful pieces.
They are beautiful, and I please allow everyone to go and see them for yourself. Everyone on the stage, this comes from passion. This is not something that you do on the side. This is, and I can hear it from your conversation, and I can see it, because we only see the final piece wherever it's exhibited, whether you see it on social media or as a platform like Abu Dhabi Art. But there are difficulties behind these. I mean, one aspect that Nadine mentioned, several aspects that Nadine mentioned, but I'm sure Shinyo and Murad, you have issues as well with your masterpiece. Can you tell us how did you come upon these obstacles?
All right. In fact, as Bushra and Nadine were speaking, some of the things that we were saying really resonated with us. To Bushra's point, lots of dialogue had to take place. And of course, you're doing things from across a screen, more or less. The conversations are taking place via Zoom, via WhatsApp, via Google Meet. And you don't really have the opportunity to like stand over the artisan and say, in the other country and vice versa, this is what I mean. A lot of trial and error, although I won't want to call it error. I would call it exploration, right? And understanding, the different methods and how they can be applied to the different materials. Similar to Bruce talking about different kinds of materials. I mean, water hyacinth is not something that's necessarily native here or that the artisans here had used. And I remember, Hajar working with the artisans with the water hyacinth fibers that we had sent to make wristbands. And when the results came, she's like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought. But through an iterative process, we were finally able to get it takes time also for the artisans to get used to working with a material that they're not necessarily familiar with or use on a regular basis. So I think patience also comes into play. In terms of, just understanding that it is an iterative process. And that's exactly what happened with us. And it's still happening because the products are not necessarily complete in the way that we would want it to be. The other aspect also that I do want to highlight, especially with handmade, is that, there has to be an allowance for some of those irregularities, which, do add to the beauty. But if you're not necessarily familiar with a particular material, you might think it's an error. Right? So those are some of the challenges and conversations that we had to have as we talked about the wristbands and the other materials as well, that some of the things that you think are imperfections are actually part of the beauty of the product and is also as a result of, using the material in a different way. So if we look at the masterpieces and the kinds of things that we did, and we did have, Hajar came up with 3 designs. These are not necessarily designs that had been executed using these techniques or materials. So it's coming to appreciate them in a different light, that this is new, this is brand new, we're using new techniques, new materials. So I won't necessarily call these challenges showstoppers. I would call them learning blocks, learning opportunities. And the learning opportunities, I believe, have translated into very, very unique items, functional as well as art.
I'd like to shed some light on the artisans as the true artists behind these beautiful collaborations and products. I'd like to open this conversation and this question to all of you. What have you seen when you have given these opportunities to the artisans, and how does that make you feel? Please.
For me, it was working with the ladies, even if it was at a distance. Like I said, because we didn't know what we were going to do, and all of it was very unconventional, there was a lot of trial and error, like you were saying, and there was a lot of experimentation. And in the beginning, some of our experiments really drifted away from Tatriz. And then with Nisreen, we discussed different ways of possibly incorporating it, which was the point. And Nisreen came back to me and said, they are super happy that they were finally able to include Tatriz. It was a pride for them. And so clearly, even for someone like me, that makes me happy that I'm able to, share that experience with, the artisans if they're happy creating what they're creating, and it helps shed a light on, a craft that's in danger. So that's a satisfying experience.
Would you like to comment, Nadine?
Yes, when we started the social enterprise in 2015, our aim was, to preserve the craft, yet give these ladies a more sustainable income. And throughout the years, we've grown as an organization, and we've given them not just a stable income, but we've been able to help them with underlying health conditions, support them in different ways as an organization, as an SME would support their employees. And what's relevant about what this has become as an organization is that these ladies have children who are women, who are also training to practice tatreez, and for them it's giving them an opportunity that there is a work field available for them, a place of existence within that craft, outside of the camp, outside of the way that they're used to using it in a conventional way, which is traditional garments or forms of expression. And I think giving that livelihood to them has, been something that we couldn't have imagined as an organization. We couldn't. It's a very satisfying feeling
I'm sure it's
to know that
rewarding.
you're impacting people in that way.
You are, all of you,
Yeah.
and I'm really proud. I reiterate this pleasure of me talking and shedding light on these conversations. I'd like to give a few questions to the floor if anyone has any questions. There's mics. Do we have set on mics? Yeah. Anyone has any question? Here, please.
Hi, thank you very much. I wanted to ask how the social enterprise is usually structured, because I assume that in UAE there is some problems with raising money or some like charity work. So I'm very interested in how you usually structure if you fundraise money or not, or it's your business initiative, how it works. Thank you very much.
I can take it.
Please.
So basically, social enterprises you're not raising money for them, so we wouldn't call that a charity. It's more of a platform to give those who are artisans a place to sell their products. So the way it's sustained is through the sale of the products. You can bring on sponsors or let's say partners that can commission the pieces to come to life if you're in a situation where you need to be able to raise funds to commission certain products. But that can be done, in a direct way where, the commissioner is paying for the material and the production and the shipping and everything that comes with building a social enterprise. But the way the social enterprise is usually sustained is through the sale of the products that are created. This is our model. So.
And what's the difference between social enterprise and enterprise? So it's more benefits or?
Well, social enterprise works with usually those who are underprivileged. So in our case, it's the Palestinian refugee artisans that we work with. And it's creating sort of that sustainability in terms of the workforce for them, in terms of jobs, in terms of using a platform to showcase their products and sell their products.
Aishin, you would
Okay,
like to?
yes, so if I could just add to that. We are also a for-profit social enterprise, and you asked what the difference is. We are making money, but it's with a social mission. So we are out to change lives. We're solving a problem, an environmental problem. We're providing livelihoods to the artisans, the communities that we work with. And if you look at, the Sustainable Development Goals, most of what we do, in fact, all of what we do keys into the Sustainable Development Goals, at least 5 of them. So yes, we are making money through our products, the sales of our products, as well as sales of services. That money is plowed back into the business and essentially guarantees some form of sustainability. And of course, we can't achieve this without partnerships. So the partnerships are with our customers, the partnerships are with people I would call social investors that are interested in communities improving and artisan livelihoods being built.
Yeah, I wanted to ask actually from the government perspective or from business perspective, what's the difference between LLC and social enterprise? Like, do you get any benefits from the government or it's just a name, right?
Yes, so I can speak to Nigeria. So in Nigeria, we don't have an incorporation for social enterprises like they are in the developed world. You can have a B Corp and so on and so forth. It's not like that in Nigeria. So I'm simply an enterprise. I'm registered as an enterprise, but my mission as this enterprise is
So you see
social.
yourself as a social enterprise.
Exactly.
So the government should do something on it.
Oh, we wish, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think there is.
Yes.
I mean, like I've heard that it's a structured. You can structure a company as a social enterprise.
Absolutely.
But I haven't seen the benefits of it. Like instead of having LLC, it's the same. So I do have also a social enterprise, like back in my country. But it's also the same. Like you do business, but you contribute like 80% to charity. So. Yeah.
There is part of DCT is the House of Artisans, if you've heard of them, and we had a discussion on the masterpiece. But that's how Abu Dhabi is preserving this culture, is that there is a space that you can go and see the artisans work on these projects. There's been several collaborations that you see the artisans working on these pieces. And then, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but there was a collaboration with Nike, and the Sedu was on the sneakers, and it went viral on Instagram. It's available to buy on in the House of Artisans. And there's many, many other projects that has been led by the House of Artisans and the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi. So definitely from a government perspective in Abu Dhabi, this is something that's key for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you for your time. It's an honor. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.